I will just say, allow yourself to dream big when you're thinking about what you want. And as Sarah said, you know, what do you want into the future, and you're brainstorming ideas for your business. Allow, you know, if you want your business to hit a certain mark or to be someone, don't limit yourself. Allow yourself to plan and really think for the big picture and what's the, oh my gosh, what do they call it? The big audacious goals that I want to hit. But start there. Why should you start lower and only try to achieve that goal or try to plan for that? Let's start with the big ones, man. Let's figure out where we want to, after all of this. We spent a lot of time inside and thinking and think, wow, wouldn't this be amazing if I could do this? Or wouldn't this be amazing if I could do that? Put it down. It would be amazing. Let's try to do it.
And I think that's important too when you talk about dreaming big, because nobody could have imagined this scenario that we're all living through right now. So no one had this in their strategic plan. I mean, yes, most of us probably had disaster recovery plans and emergency response plans and all of that somewhere in a binder on a shelf somewhere, but nothing to really prepare us for what this is. So why not dream the impossible? Because if we had had this conversation a year ago, no one would have thought that what we're going through right now would have been what's happening. So moving towards a better future and working towards a better future and kind of drilling down into some specifics on what can we have a retreat on, what can we brainstorm about, and what will the future look like. You know, depending on what your services are, what your products are that you put out to consumers in the world, let's look at your organization and what will be different about your organization, right? So you can start in one of two ways. You can take this an internal look into your internal operating structures and your team and how you guys all integrate together, or we can also look at it on the outside of how is this going to change how you communicate and deal with your customers as well as your vendors. So one of the things that we did yesterday with our SKC daily call is we talked to the team and we said, what is this going to look like for you when we're allowed to have everybody back to the office? What does your new working environment look like? What do you want it to look like? Do you want to come back to the office 5 days a week? Do you want to still have the flexibility of working from home X number of days a week? Is there a need for investment in new technology or additional equipment to make your working from home experience better? Because my expectation is coming back from this in X number of weeks, we're not going to see a full parking lot at our office right away. It's not just going to be a light switch that turns on and all of a sudden it's like we went back to, you know, March 10th and nothing changed. This is going to be a difference of what it was, and what does that look like for your team? How do they want their experience with your organization to be different, so that today you can start having these brainstorming sessions, even if it's Zoom calls with your team about, all right, what do we need to change about the office? Do we need to change our layout? Do we need to change, you know, our square footage the next time our lease is up? Do we need to invest in better technology so you guys can get onto our servers and not have as much, you know, hiccups and slow running? Really engage your team. They're out there working day to day, for most of us from home or remotely, and they have a lot to say about what it means to them, and it's different for everybody. We've heard from some of our team members that they miss each other in the office and they really want to get back as soon as they can. Other people, I think, are quite content with being at home and having a different flexible work schedule. So tap into your team, ask them for feedback, and start building what your organization will look like internally when we come out of this, so that you can best speak to each individual team member's needs and desires in this. I think that's so important to get their feedback. Let's talk about documenting different processes. A lot of what we've been doing at SKC is different because people aren't in the office every day anymore. So what are we doing as far as paperless workarounds, or how are we changing processes that we've had for 30 years to, you know, make sure that we need to do it remotely and you know, send things electronically, and are they sent electronically safely between each other, and are we, you know, checking all the boxes that we used to with our old processes and procedures? We're kind of ripping apart everything that we used to do in the brick and mortar structure to everybody working from home? And are we making sure that we're documenting that, and that everybody, we're 28 people at SKC, are we all following the same process for making sure this work product gets out the door? And so we're starting to go through documenting that and keeping everybody on the same page and connected, which is so important. And going through that process, you find a lot more efficiencies and how you can be more effective as an organization now that we're not inside the brick and mortar structure every day. Another thing to tap into your team with is, and even yourself as a business owner or a leader, is to list the biggest roadblocks that have come up in the last couple of weeks with trying to engage with your team, trying to operate the company or your organization on a day-to-day. How do you need to change those roadblocks, or how do you need to change your organization to eliminate those roadblocks so that you can become more nimble? The biggest thing is, again, I talked about different processes and documenting those processes. Do we need to create a process and a procedure behind online hiring? Do you need to have, an online application? Are we doing interviews through Zoom for people that are doing interviews? What kind of remote technology do you need to invest in and change your infrastructure? I talked about office space and changing your square footage. Remote training programs, right? So if we move to remote hiring, we then need to figure out how we're going to train people. I had a couple of clients that were in the process of onboarding people right when this kind of all mushroom clouded, and they had to put some of their hires on hold because they couldn't be in the office to physically train them. And so that was a challenge for them. And how do we work around that? And how do we figure out, well, even though we were supposed to onboard somebody and we're not in the office, we'll figure out a way to make it work. We'll have a process for that. We'll go to the binder on the shelf or the electronic file. We'll pull that down, and this is the process we go through to electronically and remotely train somebody. So just even engaging your team in this, and what were their biggest obstacles? What were your biggest obstacles? What are the hurdles that we can change our structure and our processes to be able to really be successful if we ever have to go through this again, or to be more effective and efficient as an organization right out of the gate. So another chat that just came in is the challenging environment of working with kids at home. So this is kind of a unique situation that we're in, where all of the daycares and the schools are closed, right? So what does that mean to your people that are affected by having kids at home? How are they pivoting their hours? Are you set up to be able to have flexibility with hours being outside of maybe 9 to 5, because maybe it's 2 working spouses home? With kids to catch running around, or homeschooling that they need to be doing during this time. These are the things that you need to engage with your team and find out, all right, so these are your hurdles. How do we pivot and change things within our organization to make sure that you guys are accommodated for as well? The other piece to this is, where can we invest your time as leaders and decision makers now to improve later? So that's the concept that we've heard about, working on your business instead of in your business, right? We talk about marketing, and so how is that going to change? How is that going to look different in the future? Are you going to be able to go to networking groups anymore? Are we going to all be networking and connecting on Zoom? And so how can you be creative with that? How do we go beyond what was exciting 2 weeks ago, which was the concept of a virtual happy hour, and how do we pivot in the next coming months to what the next thing is for that? One of our team members at SKC sent an email link to a farm out in California that actually lets you rent llamas and camels to join on your Zoom call. So you rent them for like 35 minutes, and then they appear as a little screen inside the Zoom call, and it's supposed to be this, kitschy little exciting thing. Well, that's going to phase out too. So then what's the next thing after, people are tired of virtual happy hours and people are tired of llamas? What's the next marketing strategy we do? We're seeing a lot of things on social media right now, because people are home and they're in front of their computers constantly because we're not out and about. So how does your social media strategy change? Or how do you get into social media if you're not currently in it with all of the platforms across the board? What does it look like to offer a webinar on Zoom? What does it look like to offer something free on LinkedIn? You're seeing a lot of that lately too. And how can you put out valuable real-time content now and in the future that will speak to people who are in a different working environment, more remote working environment? Innovation and strategy. Go ahead, Karen. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, so I just wanted to comment on, about the changing strategies to networking events and marketing materials and content and things like that. And I think that we're going to see a shift to a lot smaller, more intimate events if they're live events. That's definitely the vibe that I'm getting in my circles. I'm curious to hear, what other people are hearing as well, but definitely, we want to go back to that personal connection touch again. Zoom is great, but only takes us so far. But when we do go back, it may be focusing really on those small intimate groups or one-on-ones or just, lunch meetings, breakfast, whatever, just smaller and more intimate. I think we've gotten to a different place at this point. And in terms of the social media content, I just also wanted to comment that it is challenging right now to navigate this minefield of what is appropriate content and what isn't. But I think that when you balance the sort of human side, which is what everyone is craving right now, along with the technical side, you get a much better result than going, all tech or all fluff. So
Thanks, Kat. Just going to comment on a couple things that came in through the Zoom chat. Lisa Carver, I don't know if you want to comment on this, that your clients have been successful implementing virtual employee training programs as well as interviewing via Zoom and MS Teams. I don't know if you want to say anything in addition to that, Lisa. I think it's probably a whole different world of how do you judge somebody when you're not, quote, face to face and you're just on Zoom, right?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, we've definitely over the past few weeks have seen a shift with our clients now. They are definitely starting to hire remotely. They don't have a choice. Some of them are so uncertain about how to go about doing this. So we've created different virtual training programs that we've sent to our clients. We've created, best practices on tips on how to interview remotely. This is the way the whole market is shifting. Nothing's really going to change over the next few months. And companies really need to onboard these people and they need to hire. Some of these jobs aren't going away. So they're all kind of adapting to the new norm. I mean, it's all going to be virtual. So it's a lot of our financial companies that are really taking this on now. So I just wanted to mention, it's going to happen across the board in all the different industries, but this is how they're, when it comes to the third and fourth interview, they would like to bring them in, except that everyone's wearing masks. So really, what's the difference if you're behind a camera or if you're in person with a mask, because you can't even see their facial expressions. So they're all little by little, they're shifting in that direction and it's working. They're doing the whole onboarding process through the video camera and they're training 2-3 times a week. So I just wanted to mention that it's working and that's what we've been seeing.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. And I think you're spot on. I think it's going to be across the board, across all industries. And, why not get the advantage and get ahead of the curve as much as we possibly can, given that we have, time now to make that investment as opposed to sort of being at the end of the arc and a little bit behind the 8 ball.